There are moments in life when a door closes and everything inside us wants to fight it. We replay the conversations, revisit the opportunities, and pray not for wisdom but for reversal. We ask God to reopen what He has already shut, believing that persistence alone will change His mind. But what if the closed door is not punishment? What if it is protection? What if God, in His mercy, is shielding you from something you cannot yet see? You see, we often judge a situation by how badly we wanted it. If it felt right, if it made sense, if it looked promising, we assume it must be from God. But desire is not always discernment. Some paths look peaceful at the entrance but lead to exhaustion at the end. Some relationships feel comforting at first but slowly drain the joy and strength God placed within you. Some opportunities promise growth, but quietly compromise your values, your calling, or your faith. God sees the whole road while you only see the next step, and when He closes a door, it is often because He knows what waits beyond it. There are battles God never intended you to fight, and losses He never intended you to suffer. A closed door can be His way of saying, "This would have cost you more than you know." He protects you from people who would have pulled you away from Him, from environments that would have dulled your spiritual sensitivity, and from decisions that would have slowly reshaped you into someone you were never meant to become. What feels like disappointment now may be deliverance you will thank Him for later. Think about how often we pray for God to remove danger while running straight toward it. We ask Him for peace while holding on to chaos. We ask Him for growth while refusing change. So sometimes God answers our prayers not by giving us what we ask for, but by denying what we insist on. The door closes, the opportunity fades, the relationship ends, and we are left confused, even hurt. But heaven sees it differently. Heaven sees a rescue. God's protection is not always gentle. Sometimes it comes with tears, unanswered questions, and nights where you wonder what you did wrong. But protection does not need to feel good to be good. A parent pulls a child away from traffic even if the child cries. In the same way, God will close doors forcefully if that is what it takes to keep you from harm. The pain of a closed door is often far less than the pain of what would have happened if it stayed open. And here is the truth we often overlook. If God allowed that door to close, it means He was never absent from the situation. He was present, attentive, and intentional. Nothing slipped through His fingers. Nothing caught Him by surprise. The rejection did not outrun His sovereignty. The delay did not overpower His plan. The ending did not cancel His promises. God is not reacting to your life. He is guiding it. When a door closes, it invites you to trust God beyond your understanding. It challenges you to believe that He is good even when things don't feel good. It calls you to surrender control and stop trying to force what God is trying to prevent. And yes, that surrender is hard. It goes against our instincts. We want explanations, clarity, and guarantees. But faith grows strongest in moments when all you have is the assurance that God knows what He is doing. One day, you will look back and realize that the closed door you mourned was the very thing that preserved your faith, your peace, and your purpose. You will see how God's hand was steady even when your heart was shaken. And you will understand that what felt like rejection was actually redirection wrapped in mercy. So if a door has closed in your life and you don't understand why, don't rush to reopen it. Thank God for protecting you from what you couldn't yet see. One of the hardest truths to accept is that not everything we love is meant to last forever. We grow attached to people, places, routines, and seasons because they feel familiar and safe. Over time, what once felt like a blessing can quietly become a limitation. We may not even notice it happening, but our hearts begin to cling to what is comfortable rather than what is calling us forward. And when that happens, God in His wisdom sometimes closes doors. Not because He wants to hurt us, but because He wants to free us. Unhealthy attachments do not always look dangerous. Many of them begin as good things. A relationship that once encouraged you may now distract you from God. A habit that once brought relief may now dull your spiritual sensitivity. A familiar environment that once nurtured you may now keep you from growing. The danger is not always in what is clearly wrong, but in what is no longer right. God sees when something has outlived its purpose, even when we are still holding on. We often pray for God to move in our lives, but we resist when that movement requires letting go. We say we want His will, yet we keep returning to doors He has already marked as finished. We hold on because separation feels like loss, and loss feels like failure. But God does not measure endings the way we do. To Him, an ending is often a release. It is His way of loosening the grip of things that have quietly taken too much space in our hearts. There are moments when God knows that if He does not close the door, you will never walk away on your own. You will keep justifying the attachment, keep hoping it will change, keep investing your time and energy into something that no longer aligns with His purpose for you. So He intervenes. The conversation ends. The connection fades, the opportunity dissolves, and suddenly you are forced to face the emptiness where that attachment once lived. That emptiness can feel frightening, but it is also revealing. It shows us how much of our identity, security, or sense of worth had been tied to something other than God. And in that revelation, God is not condemning you. He is inviting you back. He is reminding you that He never intended for people, positions, or patterns to take His place in your heart. God knows that unhealthy attachments slowly reshape our priorities. They begin to influence our decisions, our prayers, and even our obedience. We start asking God to bless what we are attached to, instead of asking Him to lead us where we need to go. And when attachments begin to compete with God's voice, they become obstacles rather than blessings. That is when God, in His mercy, steps in and closes the door. Letting go is painful because it feels like losing a part of yourself. But what you are really losing is what no longer belongs in the next season of your life. God is not taking something away to leave you empty. He is making room. Room for deeper faith, room for clearer direction, room for relationships and opportunities that align with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. You may not understand right now why God allowed that door to close. You may replay it in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. But the truth is, some doors close not because you failed, but because you stayed too long. God loved you anew to interrupt what was familiar so you could step into what is faithful. When you release what God has closed, you begin to discover a new kind of freedom. Your prayers become lighter, your spirit becomes more sensitive, your focus shifts from what you lost to what God is preparing. And slowly you realize that the door God closed was not holding your future, it was holding you back. So trust Him in the letting go, because what He is breaking is not your heart, but the chains that kept you from moving forward. There comes a time in every life when staying where you are becomes more uncomfortable than stepping into the unknown. You may not recognize it at first, but something inside you begins to stir. What once satisfied you no longer fulfills you. What once challenged you now feels repetitive. And yet you hesitate because growth always asks for movement, and movement requires trust. This is often the moment when God closes a door, not to punish you, but to confirm that you have outgrown the season you are standing in. Spiritual growth changes the way you see, the way you respond, and the way you listen to God. As you mature, certain environments can no longer sustain what God is developing within you. The values no longer align. The conversations no longer feed your spirit. The pace no longer matches the direction God is leading you. When you remain in a place you have outgrown, your faith can become stagnant, not because God has stopped moving, but because you have stopped following. God never wastes a season. Every place He leads you into is meant to teach you something: patience, humility, courage, dependence, or obedience. But once the lesson has been learned, staying longer than necessary can actually hinder the very growth God intended. So He allows doors to close, opportunities end, roles shift, connections fade, and suddenly what felt stable begins to feel unsettled. We often mistake that unsettling feeling for failure. We assume something has gone wrong when in fact something has gone right. God is not removing you because you are unqualified. He is moving you because you are ready. The door closes not because you lack faith, but because your faith has grown strong enough to carry more responsibility, more influence, and deeper purpose. It takes humility to accept that where you once belonged is no longer where you are meant to stay. There is comfort in familiarity, even when it no longer challenges us. But God is more interested in your transformation than your comfort. If staying in the same place keeps you from becoming who He has called you to be, He will lovingly disrupt your routine. When God closes a door due to growth, it often feels sudden. There may be no dramatic warning, no clear explanation. One day you simply realize that you cannot go back to who you used to be, even if you wanted to. Your prayers have changed. Your convictions have deepened. Your hunger for truth has increased. And the old door no longer responds because you are no longer the same person who walked through it. This kind of growth can feel lonely. People who once understood you may no longer recognize you. Places that once welcomed you may now feel foreign. But that loneliness is not abandonment, it is transition. God is separating you from what is familiar so you can lean more fully on Him and prepare for what is ahead. You may be tempted to reopen old doors simply because they are known. But God does not call you to return to smaller spaces once He has expanded your vision. To go back would be to shrink what He has grown. The closed door is a confirmation that the work He has done in you is real and lasting. In time, you will see that the door closed, because it could no longer contain the faith, wisdom, and strength God placed inside you. And when you finally step into what He is preparing next, you will understand that growth always requires leaving something behind. So don't mourn the door that closed. Walk forward knowing it closed because you were ready for more. One of the greatest struggles of faith is learning how to wait when everything inside us wants to move. We live in a world that rewards speed, urgency, and immediate results, and that mindset often follows us into our walk with God. When an opportunity appears, we rush to open the door ourselves. When a desire grows strong, we assume the timing must be right. But God is not only concerned with where He is taking you, He is deeply concerned with when you arrive. And sometimes the most loving thing He can do is close a door until the timing is right. We tend to believe that delay means denial, but in God's kingdom, delay is often preparation. A closed door can be His way of saying, not yet. Not because the promise is wrong, but because the moment is not ready. There are seasons when what you want would overwhelm you rather than bless you. There are times when stepping through an open door too early would cost you more than it gives. God sees the full picture, the conditions, the consequences, and the maturity required to sustain what He is planning to give. When God redirects your path through a closed door, He is teaching you dependence. He is inviting you to trust His wisdom over your urgency. Waiting exposes what we truly rely on. It reveals whether our confidence is rooted in God's guidance or in our own ability to make things happen. And that revelation, though uncomfortable, is essential for spiritual growth. There are moments when you are ready in desire but not ready in character, ready in passion but not in patience, ready in vision but not in discipline. God is not withholding blessings to frustrate you. He is aligning every part of you to handle them well. A door opened too soon can become a burden instead of a breakthrough. So God closes it, not to stop you, but to strengthen you. It is difficult to trust God's timing when you feel capable of moving forward on your own. You see the resources, you see the opportunity, you see others moving ahead while you remain still. But faith is not proven by how fast you move, it is proven by how well you wait. Waiting is not wasted time when God is involved. It is the place where faith is refined, motives are purified, and obedience is deepened. God's redirection often feels like interruption. Plans fall apart, expectations shift. Paths you were confident in suddenly disappear. And in that moment, you face a choice: Will you force your way through a door God has closed, or will you trust that He is leading you towards something better? Forced doors may open temporarily, but they rarely lead to peace. Go. These doors, opened in His timing, always carry His presence with them. The hardest part of trusting God's timing is surrendering control. We want clarity before obedience, assurance before action. But God often asks us to walk by faith, not by sight. He closes doors so that we will seek Him more deeply, listen more carefully, and lean more fully on His direction instead of our own understanding. When you look back, you will realize that the delays were not empty spaces but sacred ones. They shaped your patience, strengthened your trust, and protected you from rushing into what you were not yet ready to sustain. God was never slow. He was precise. So when a door closes and the path ahead feels uncertain, remember that God's timing is never late, never careless, and never cruel. It is always perfect. There are seasons when faith is easy, when doors are open, prayers feel answered, and the path ahead seems clear. In those moments, trusting God feels natural. But then there are times when doors close without explanation, when the future feels uncertain and silence replaces clarity. It is in those moments that faith is no longer theoretical, it becomes personal. God often uses closed doors not to weaken your faith, but to refine it, to strip it down to what is real, resilient, and rooted in Him alone. When everything is going well, it is easy to say you trust God. But when a door closes that you were sure would open, trust is tested. You begin to ask questions. You wonder if you heard God correctly, if you waited long enough, if you prayed hard enough. And yet, it is precisely in this confusion that faith grows deeper. God is not offended by your questions. He is concerned with your dependence. Closed doors remove the comfort of control and force the soul to lean fully on Him. Faith that has never been tested is faith that has never been strengthened, just as muscles grow under resistance. Faith matures under pressure. God allows closed doors to confront shallow trust and transform it into unwavering confidence. When there is no visible way forward, faith learns to rest not in outcomes but in God's character. You stop trusting Him only for what He gives and begin trusting Him for who He is. A closed door exposes what your faith is attached to. Sometimes we place our trust in results, in people, in plans, or in certainty. We say we trust God, but what we really trust is the door staying open. When God closes it, everything else is removed and you are left with a simple question: will you still trust Him now? That moment of honesty is where refinement begins. God uses closed doors to purify motives. It is easy to follow God when the path aligns with your desires. But when obedience leads to waiting, surrender, or disappointment, your faith is refined from convenience to commitment. You learn to follow God not because it benefits you immediately, but because He is worthy of your trust regardless of the outcome. There are times when God allows the door to close so you will learn how to pray differently, not prayers driven by panic, but prayers shaped by surrender, not prayers demanding answers, but prayers seeking God's presence. In the quiet that follows a closed door, faith deepens because distractions fade and dependence grows. You begin to hear God more clearly when there is nothing left to rely on but Him. Closed doors also teach endurance. Faith that endures silence, delay, and uncertainty becomes unshakable. It is no longer based on feelings or circumstances. It is anchored in the belief that God is faithful even when life is not predictable. That kind of faith does not collapse when plans change or doors close. It stands firm because it knows God remains. You may not realize it in the moment, but the season of closed doors is shaping you for future open ones. God is building a faith that will sustain the weight of the blessings ahead. Without refinement, success would weaken you. Without testing, opportunity would overwhelm you. God refines your faith now so that when the right door opens, you will walk through it with humility, wisdom, and unshakable trust. One day you will look back and see that the closed doors did more than block your path. They strengthened your soul. They taught you how to trust God without proof, how to walk without certainty, and how to believe without seeing. and that refined faith will carry you farther than any open door ever could. So if your faith feels stretched today, remember that God is not breaking it. He is refining it. It is important to understand that God never works in isolation. He does not close a door and then walk away, leaving you stranded with disappointment and confusion. When God closes a door, He is already preparing another one, often greater than the one you lost. We struggle with this truth because we measure loss by what we can see, but God measures gain by what He has planned. What looks like an ending to you is often the beginning of something far more aligned with His purpose. We become attached to old doors because they are familiar. We know what they lead to, even if they no longer fulfill us. A greater door, however, requires greater faith, and faith is uncomfortable because it demands trust before understanding. God knows that if He allows you to cling to the old, you will never step into the new. So He closes what you keep returning to, not to punish you, but to prepare you for what you would otherwise miss. Every closed door creates space. Space in your schedule, space in your heart, space in your vision. God cannot fill hands that refuse to release what they are holding. Sometimes the very thing you are grieving is the reason you have not yet received what God promised. He closes the door not because the past was useless, but because it has completed its assignment. The new door requires room to open fully. What God prepares next often does not resemble what He closed. That is why we resist it. We expect replacement, but God brings elevation. We look for something similar, but God offers something deeper, stronger, and more purposeful. The next door may require more responsibility, more obedience, and more surrender. And God knows you cannot carry both seasons at once. A greater door also demands greater readiness. God is not careless with blessings. He prepares the place, the timing, and the person receiving it. If He opened the next door too soon, it would overwhelm you. So, He closes the old one first, allowing you to grow into the capacity needed for what is coming. The waiting is not empty, it is intentional. We often assume the next door will appear immediately after the last one closes. But God is not rushed. Between doors, there is usually a hallway, a season of trust, reflection, and alignment. That hallway is where God strengthens your faith, sharpens your discernment, and deepens your dependence on Him. If you rush through it, you may miss the preparation required for what lies ahead. A greater open door also brings greater impact. God is not just moving you for your benefit, He is positioning you for others as well. The closed door may have limited your influence, constrained your growth, or restricted your obedience. The next door will stretch you, expand you, and call more out of you. God closes what is too small so He can open what is significant. It is natural to fear that a closed door means loss, but with God, it always means direction. He does not remove something without replacing it with something better suited to His will. What you lost may have served you for a season, but what is coming will serve His purpose in you more fully. One day, you will stand on the other side of the door God opens and realize that if the old one had remained, you would never have arrived here. You will see how every delay, every ending, and every closed path was leading you forward, not backward. And you will thank God not only for the doors He opened, but especially for the ones He had the courage to close. So trust the closed door, because God is making room for a greater one that will change everything.